What is going on, everyone? Welcome to week 6 of the LTC. This week we are going up against Rob, aka Rockyrolo, coach of the sexy Sigilyph, which in my opinion is one of the funniest names in the league, if not the funniest. So really cool. Rob joined not last minute, but as a replacement coach for Jack or Gravy, who started the season 0-1, and from there, Rob had, since taking over the team, hasn't lost a game yet. So I'm coming into this game 5-0. Rob is coming in 4-1, but technically Rob hasn't lost any games yet. On top of that, Rob and I's head-to-head record is 1-1, so this is relatively important for that reason, to see sort of who has the winning record against each other. That's always fun. But this is LTC, this isn't Owls, this is the first time we're fighting each other in a low-tier format. However, you know, I am still sort of conscious of Rob's playstyle being a much more bulkier sort of time, so we'll see how that necessarily goes. I do want to apologize for this being a post-com. I did do a live com of this, and I watched it back, and it was honestly just like one of the worst live coms I've ever done, purely because I was just in like a really bad mood / mental state. At the time of doing it. There was just a lot of stuff going on in my head that I'm not going to go into detail on, but personal stuff that's just been a struggle. So, yep, I'm just going to do a quick post-com against Rob here, so it is a lot easier on me, and I don't have to subject you to the horrifying live com that was against Rob in this game. So, I am going to show what Rob's team was. It is Honchcrow, Toxicroak, B-Barrel, Rapidash, Floette, Ampharos, Matang, Fracture, Piloswine, Armaldo, and Mismagius. Of these things, you know, I am actually relatively scared of Fracture. I think with a Z move and it being a tier 5 mon, it's definitely something that could be extremely scary. I also think that Toxicroak is a big threat. It's sort of this is the first team I'm sort of looking at Floatzel's matchup and seeing that, you know, he has a water immunity, he has some of these good switch-ins here. Additionally, Mismagius sort of slaps my team around a little bit. My dark type is Pawniard, which isn't necessarily sort of the best situation. For me, it sort of forces me to bring either Pawniard or Licky in this matchup, which is something that Rob knows he can take advantage of. Other than that, like, Rapidash is somewhat possible, Ampharos is somewhat possible, Matang is possibly possible, but other than that, I would say Toxicroak, Fracture, and Mismagius are the mons that I'm a little most scared of, so we'll see how this game goes. But I'm going to go into the team builder. I am bringing Mega Gallade with Bulk Up this time. Now, I'm bringing Bulk Up because I want to be able to set up on things like Piloswine, things like Matang, and if I'm able to bulk up enough on those things, Drain Punch is actually going to recover more than more HP that I'm taking from when I'm +2 defense from things like, you know, Meteor Mash, Matang, or Earthquake, Piloswine, all these things. So it's pretty nice. Sorry, it's some of my teeth. Okay, so yeah, I just lost my spot. Whew. Okay, this is gonna be great. Great recording. Fantastic. Well done. So the next mon, or not the next mon, but the other thing is it has perfect coverage. It has perfect coverage is what I'm trying to say. Wow, I'm not starting this over, but I promise it's not gonna be as bad from here on out. I've just been the okay, that's fine. Let's do this. All right, take 2. We're doing it. All right, Shadow Sneaks for the Mismagius. That was all I was trying to say. Then we have Tyrantrum. Rocky MZ, really just like Edgequake, just rock plus ground, hits his entire team at least neutrally. And then I'm actually getting up Stealth Rocks with Tyrantrum, and you'll see why I do this a little bit later on, but it has enough speed to outspeed Fracture, and Rock Polish is not really theirs for a purpose. It's sort of just filler in terms of like if Tyrantrum magically stays around the late game and I need to Rock Polish, then I'll Rock Polish, but there's really no other move that I had that I thought I necessarily needed. So we got a bit of a bulkier spread this time to guarantee that we get rocks up. And even though we have Hippo, you'll see the Hippo set and why I don't have rocks on the Hippo set in a little while. But next is Swanna. It outspeeds the Toxicroak, which is absolutely fantastic, which is really important because Toxicroak sort of goes in on the team right now. And having something like Hurricane Spam plus Scald Spam, something that can sort of spread status and also scare the Piloswine out is really nice here. I almost went with, I believe, Defog over Toxic, but I figured Toxic was a little bit more crucial in this matchup. So that is the Swanna set. Honestly, I'd never know what ability to put on, and I've just sort of went big pecs in case Rob tries to, like, I don't know, lower my defenses somehow. But that being said, it has enough speed and has enough HP to be taking certain hits from Toxicroak, but it still has enough, special attack to guarantee the OHKO on Toxicroak with Hurricane and guarantee the 2-KO on Piloswine with Scald, so still EV'd in the correct sense there. Now, Potato is still a defensive set, but once again, it's there to spread status, and it's also there to Whirlwind. I want Potato to do things like bait in Armaldo, which might try and Swords Dance, and bait in, things like Honchkrow, which might try and sort of break me. And I just want to be able to sort of like Whirlwind spam them around. I think that, Hippo baits in a lot of stuff that doesn't want to get Whirlwinded out, and then it just Whirlwinds it out, and it looks really good. And if it doesn't, then it just Toxics and Slack Offs and Earthquakes. It's also the only mod on my team that can actually like take hits from Fracture, so that's sort of why I have it there. Fracture is such a big deal. If he tries to set up on me, or if he's like +1, I believe this still, this takes a max Adamant +1 Z Outrage from Fracture and Whirlwinds it out if I need it to do that. So that is the EV spread. Otherwise, it's in special defense and attack to just hit hard. So the next mod is Rotom Fan. It barely outspeeds Toxicroak, but that's absolutely okay. Air Slash guarantees kills Toxicroak with this spread after Rocks, I believe, is the spread that we had. And then, the rest is in bulk. It's definitely a much more defensive spread with more offensive investment. However, just Volt Switch spam against Rob's team, when his one switch in to Volt Switch is Piloswine, and Piloswine doesn't want to get Will-O-Wisped, it makes it very difficult for Rob to deal with this mon. So that's why we have Rotom Fan. And then finally, for our Miss Mages check, we have Licky. Now, Licky was originally Wish Protect, but I changed it to Rest Sleep Talk on the off chance that Rob wants to like sort of try and Toxic stall me, and Licky allows me to beat that stall game 1v1. Knockoff otherwise beats, he just doesn't like things getting knocked off, and if he ultimately goes Toxicroak on my Licky, then that means that, it loses its item, and that's pretty good. It also, stops things like Fracture's EV Light. Otherwise, things are just going to get toxic. So the plan against Rob is just sort of spam Toxic, spam Status, and clean up with Gallade, and maybe Tyrantrum, if it is so fitting. So this is the game against Rob here. Once again, really excited to play this match. There's a lot of things, I wouldn't say on the line, but in terms of just being the last undefeated team in the league. Technically, I mean, he does have a loss from the other person, but like he hasn't lost a game himself yet. So this is really for the last undefeated team in the league, because there's no other undefeated teams in the league, as well as our sort of 1-to-1 tiebreaker in terms of individual head-to-head. So we are going to get into the game. He is going to lead off with Ampharos. I'm going to lead off my Rotom Fan. Now, I led off with Rotom Fan because I thought that it had fantastic matchup against everything except Ampharos. So him leading Ampharos tells me it's not sort of a sweeper set, and it's probably going to be some sort of toxic-y, stally set. I decide that, either it's going to be like Super Berry or it's going to be Leftovers. And I think that he's going to go for a Toxic here, expecting either Licky or Hippo to come in. And I would rather have Rotom Toxic than Hippopotas or Licky, because I think the Hippopotas obviously is very important for things like Fracture and Toxicroak. And Licky is important for maybe some other things. I also just like Licky can't really touch the Ampharos outside of Toxic. So I figured the play was really just to stay in and go for the Will-O-Wisp, see if this thing is leftover, see what this thing is. I took any one hit, even from like Specs Modest. So that was the play. I go for a Will-O-Wisp here, and he is going to go for the Toxic like I predicted. I don't mind this thing getting Toxic, like I said. It's much more, even though it does have like Will-O-Wisp and Pain Split, it is a much more offensive spread, so it doesn't bother me too much. And when I Will-O-Wisp, I sort of find out that this thing is like max HP and a little bit of Spadef as I go into my Licky as he reveals the Substitute. Now this is really bad because I only have Knockoff on this thing as an offensive move, and Knockoff under no circumstance 2-hit KOs. And as he goes for Toxic here, I start to realize that this is some sort of like sub-toxic, either sub-toxic Protect or like, I thought it was sub-toxic Protect, but he goes for Cotton Guard here. And then I'm starting to realize, okay, so this is like, maybe it's like a Subtoxic Protect, but Cotton Guard instead of Protect, which is very smart because it means that next time he goes for a Substitute, my Knockoff won't even be breaking it twice. So I have to go in Tyrantrum here because it's my only mon that I have on my team that doesn't get killed by Thunderbolt and is able to break a sub with an Earthquake. despite this, plus whatever defense. So I go for Earthquake here as he goes for the Toxic, and he's going to take, the burn plus leftovers, which is going to keep him at 33%. But at this point, I realize that either he's going to switch out or he's just going to go for another substitute at this point. But he actually goes for Thunderbolt, which is absolutely fine by me. It's totally cool. I think at this point, if I'm able to at least get my rocks up and pressure him, that's a good thing. And I actually thought this Earthquake would kill, but it absolutely didn't. So had he gone for sub there and I got in a low roll, that would have been very, very, very bad for me to handle. So thank God he didn't go for a sub that turn. We will basically just trade Ampharos for Tyrantrum here, but I would not necessarily call it a trade. He has Toxic my Licky and my Rotom Fan in exchange for me losing my Tyrantrum and getting up rocks. So at least it's going to force Armaldo to be spinning. But he actually goes Fracture right away, which is not something I expected on the double down. I thought he was going to preserve Fracture for more of a late game, and he actually just goes into right away and starts saying up. I was really, really considering going Rotom this turn and just Will-O-Wisp, so that would have been pretty bad for Rob had I done that. So I'm shocked that he went into Fracture right away, but it worked out for him in the end, and he goes for an Outrage here, and I realize that I'm basically just going to have to sack Licky, and then I'm on the back foot here. Thankfully, I should be able to take any one hit. Hippopotas should be able to take any one hit, and I don't know if this thing is a Z move yet, but it isn't locked into the 3-turn Outrage, so it is totally fine. I am going to go for the Slack Off here because I know that if I Slack Off and he gets confused, he's either going to want to switch out as I Whirlwind him back, or he'll just hit himself, or he'll go for the Z move, in which case he'll take a lot of damage, but then I'll Whirlwind him and it'll be fine. So it ended up hitting himself, which is the best case scenario, but ultimately, Fracture was going down there anyway. So he goes for Toxic here, which I didn't expect, but also I kind of did expect because it's Rob. And I go for a Toxic of my own. Now, I was a little shocked that he didn't go for Rapid Spin here. I thought I would just Toxic on the Rapid Spin, but he goes for Rapid Spin the second time around, which is absolutely fine by me, and I go for the Whirlwind. Now, having Whirlwind here is really, really nice because I know this B-Barrel at this point in time, given the fact that he hasn't brought it in to set up rocks or anything, is definitely some sort of setup set. So he goes for a substitute on my Toxic, I believe. Yeah, I try and go for Toxic this. I assume since Ampharos said Toxic, or substitute, this thing wouldn't have substitute, but it did, of course, because it's Rob. But thankfully, because I have Whirlwind, I prevented him from setting up. He just goes for a turn. I'm going to click Whirlwind. I'm not going to do any shenanigans, and he goes back into his Armaldo. So at this point, I have to sack Hippopotas. It's kind of useless, but thankfully, we put B-Barrel in range of things like Volt Switch and Drain Punch from Gallade, no matter really what its set is, which is absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to go into Swanna, click Scald here, and guarantee the KO on Armaldo. So that is absolutely fine as he goes into his B-Barrel. I thought he might go into something like Toxicroak to try and hurt me, but I missed my Toxic, and this is pretty crucial to the game here because between Toxic damage, it guarantees that after this Hurricane, which I also miss, I would have put him in range of dying to Toxic. Maybe he would have claimed 2. He did say that he had Salic Berry after the game, which meant that if I got it in range, he would just sort of be outspeeding me, and it would be a scary time. So maybe the Hurricane miss was okay, but I also don't think Swanna would have put B-Barrel in range. I think Swanna's not strong enough, especially with my AV spread. So that being said, I think it was just the Toxic that mattered a little bit more, but thankfully we do get the roll. I think it was a roll, unless I might have just killed with Volt Switch, so it doesn't really matter, and I'm able to bulk up on his last 2 bonds. Now this is actually kind of scary in the late game because if he is a Life Orb Toxicroak, Gunk Shot is still doing about 70 to 80% to me. So as he's gonna sort of get himself in a perfect range in which he can go for Ice Shard, I'm only gonna be able to put myself at about 60%. The Life Orb Gunk Shot from Toxicroak is killing me at this range, so I am slightly concerned. So I basically have to say to myself at this point, okay, I have a choice. I can either assume this thing is Life Orb, Gunk Shot, and he's going for it, and I can go for the Shadow Sneak here and get Chip Off, which would guarantee that Rotom Fan kills with Air Slash. Rotom Fan outspeeds Toxicroak. That being said, I could also, just win the game here 2-0 by going for Zen Headbutt. I ultimately decided to go to Shadow Sneak because I think that, if this thing's worst case scenario, it's fine, and it ended up not being fine. But that being said, if he had Sword Stance here, I would have just straight up lost. So it was somewhat of a 50-50. I don't actually know if he had Sword Stance. I don't remember. He did show me the team afterwards, but I genuinely forget. But if he had Sword Stance there and he Sword Stanced on my Shadow Sneak, on potential choke or something, that would have definitely been game there. But thank God that he just went for Poison Jab. If I had gone for Zen Headbutt there, I would have just won the game. But I do just go for Zen Headbutt the second time around because if he tries to set up an SD on this turn. Zen headbutt kills, but he actually just suckers going for a roll, and it doesn't end up in his favor. So we do get a 2-0 win over Rob, despite sort of a messy start of the game, and despite me not being in a sort of mentally adequate mindset going into this game for personal reasons. So thank God we got the win. But, you know, it was definitely an extremely, extremely close call for sure. So, well played to Rob. Hopefully I will see him in playoffs. You know, if there's anyone in the league right now who I would expect to face in finals, if I make it to finals, it's probably Rob. So that will be cool if we get to play each other again. If not, that was a very, very fun game against Rob, and I hope I play him again in future leagues. As always, we always have fantastic games with each other. So yeah. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time in LTC with an actual live com. All right, see you.